KMR, Mohan Racing, and I've got a new prototype in, a new product that's coming out, our 4-port RX8 street port and half bridge template. You can see we've got a little bit of a street port cut in here with an accompanied exhaust and primary. And if you're looking for something that can coexist with an OEM ECU and OEM setup, then I think that street port in the 4-port RX8 is a definite applicable setup. And if you're doing something more aggressive, more aftermarket, partially why we put this template together by request for a more aggressive setup, probably a non-OEM ECU. Then we've got this nice little half bridge cut in here. And it took us a while to put this together. We've been working on it in conjunction with a customer. And we wanted to make sure not only did it create a significant earlier intake opening as you get that rotor sweep, but it also did not directly interfere with the water passages. And I think a lot of people will note right away that this bridge does not extend up into the secondary street ported area. But that main reason is there's quite a bit of water gallery back here, and that's the same reason we didn't put too much duration or extension into that secondary port. Along with the water galleries, which are pretty significant in these Renesis blocks, you'll notice that the bridge material here actually gets a little thin where the OEM port pushes out based on rotor sweep. So we really did consider both ends, getting as close as we could to water gallery and using up as much material as we felt safe before you start to run a risk of having too thin of an actual bridge. And obviously when you're doing the porting, consider these into your porting effort. You wouldn't want to angle too much into water gallery, or if you're coming straight down, depending on the casting, get too significantly cut back, because that could narrow this bridge. In all of our testing through different port designs, you can get bridges pretty narrow, so I'm not worried about this, and everything we've done, it looks fine. But, you know, I always like to put that cautionary thing out there. Hey, this bridge port's not going to probably pass smog, because, yeah, it's super early intake, may or may not work with an OEM computer. Don't know. If it were me, I'd probably just go right to an aftermarket ECU and get as aggressive as possible, because this is race porting. That's what bridge ports are about. Now, if you're running a street car, that's why we left this little street cut in here, and that's why we recommend that exhaust. On my 6-port motor with my KMR street port with all emission stuff hooked up, everything properly working, no issues passing smog. I'd expect the same with this 4-port. Anybody can give me info on that, we'd love to hear it. But obviously Bridgeport's not the same, and that's federally dependent, you know, where you're at and what you're doing. But you know, this is race porting. That's why we went aggressive. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get as much volume on this intake as possible, and likewise, we're trying to get as much volume on this exhaust as possible with associated benefits, because we're always trying to get the best out of these motors. So main goal, get it open early, give it a little overlap if this is being used within a hybrid setup, peripheral exhaust port setup, or in this case, if it were to be used with your side ports, you can see how much more aggressive this exhaust port becomes after porting. Now, another thing to note with the Renesis automatics or 4-ports is their factory port isn't quite as big as the 6-port motors, which were a lot of the manual motors depending on where you were at in the world. So theoretically, the housing's underlying casting is very similar, so this can be cut down a little bit, but what you're mainly doing is dropping it down a little and then a lot of ramping to get as much volume out and get it open as early as possible. So significant improvements to exhaust flow and intake flow depending on how you choose to port it. Whether you go with the street port only or the street port half bridge, you're going to get a lot more intake volume. And like I mentioned, being careful of your water jackets and underlying water galleries, you're getting a lot more exhaust volume in as well. And then another just always benefit I always talk about with the Renesis is cleaning up the exhaust ports, getting rid of sharp edges and cavities, because those will trap carbon, and a nice smooth finish seems to reduce that carbon buildup, carbon trapping, which can extend the duration of performance and lifetime in the motor. So definite benefits there. Obviously, with any rotary porting, you do lose a little bit of bottom end, but I always say I don't drive my rotary in a performance mind. Down low, I'm usually up in the RPM enjoying what rotaries have to offer. Just great performance, great sound, and that fantastic ability to rev high. So there you have it. Just on an old housing I had knocking around the shop. Been in development for honestly over a year now. We finally have our prototype that is a workable prototype. We're happy with it, and we'll be getting this into the KMR store soon. We're just waiting on inventory at this point, so I don't want to list it really too soon before I have inventory. That's mean. I don't want to keep people waiting, but hey, people have been waiting, so it's here. And in hybrid, it'll probably brap. And in OEM trim, it'll definitely flow more. So, all right, any questions, comment below. Just one of the things we had going on. I wanted to show it off. A little brap action, keeping those Renesis motors alive. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Check out the KMR gear. We've got t-shirts now. We've got some decals of our past projects. We're working on some rotor decals and other cool stuff. If you'd like to see us come out with any new products, definitely let us know. And you know it, I'm a brap on out of here, so I got more work to do. We got to do brap-tastic things. Thank you for watching. Brap brap.